first tell me, why should cannabis be decriminalized here in the state of Ohio?
Well, I think we're at an inflection point when it comes to legalizing marijuana. A few things. One, we have a medical program that's been really successful in Ohio. So we kind of have our foot in the door. Ohioans approve of it overwhelmingly. The demand is extraordinary, and it's actually being expanded administratively now. So there's that. Then there's the fact that many states have moved forward for legalization at this point. We're approaching a tipping point where a majority of Americans, or almost a majority of Americans, live in a decriminalized state. So we have great case studies. If you just look at the many, many benefits of legalization from a criminal justice reform perspective, keeping people out of jail for nonviolent, low-level possession, for bringing those people back into the workforce and helping give them a share of the economic pie, the growth for the economy, the benefits for people medically, the revenues that my bill drives back into local governments, into K-12 education and infrastructure and veterans programs. It's a win all the way around for law enforcement too, to help them stop extending resources to nonviolent low-level possession, which we have over 20,000 arrests every year in Ohio. It's a big burden on law enforcement, so this allows them to kind of refocus their efforts more efficiently on violent crimes. There's a lot of good reasons why it's time to move forward.
You mentioned the economic impacts of if it was to be decriminalized. Do you see cannabis being a new market for Ohio and potentially growing our economy even more?
Absolutely. If you look at a state like Michigan, hundreds of millions of dollars just in the first months of legalization. I hate to say it, but Michigan's a step ahead of us on this. Hundreds of millions of dollars ahead of where just in the first few months of economic growth. So what does that translate to? That translates to jobs. That translates to more money into more communities. And then if you look like a state with a more mature market like Washington State, they drove $1.3 billion through an excise tax, which our bill also has, right back into the communities that host the dispensaries or retail locations. So it's a huge driver of revenue into local governments, which in turn can promote more economic growth. So it creates a virtuous cycle.
Have you heard from your constituents about this proposal, and what has been their reaction to it?
Oh, yes. more so this than any other piece of legislation I've worked on. I put a Facebook post out, announcing all the legislation I'm working on. This one did get a lot of media coverage. So, I shared an article and, 5,000 likes and counting and 1,000 shares and just a huge number of positive engagements. And I think out of 5,000, there's like 11 grumpy faces or angry faces. So if you use that anecdotally, it is a massive amount of outpouring of support. And to that point, Jaden, this is an issue that really has bipartisan support. I mean, actually pretty broad bipartisan support. There was a Pew poll that came out a few months ago that really showed we're past an inflection point where folks on both sides of the aisle really, really support this. And it's time for the legislature to catch up with where Ohioans are.
Why do you think there's this stigma or taboo talk about marijuana?
It's just a legacy of, quote unquote, reefer madness of really, there's a lot of myths about marijuana, that it's super damaging to your body, or that it's a gateway drug that leads to hard drug usage, or, whatever the case might be. It really, if you compare it to alcohol, for example, it is much less damaging to your body. But also, marijuana has massive, proven, demonstrated medical benefits. I came to the issue actually through my mom. She has multiple sclerosis, which is a neurological disease, and marijuana is a medicinal drug that can help MS patients. And so that's an important issue, right? So also with veterans with PTSD, it helps as well too. That's a well-established fact as well. So there's actually a lot of benefit to mental health and for physical ailments too, neurological ailments. We've included law enforcement in the discussion, and they've indicated they don't have an issue with the legislation, but I think they're generally neutral. I don't think they've taken a position necessarily on our bill, but I'd say, maybe an under discussed part of it is the criminal justice reform part. We put a lot of money into private prisons to imprison a lot of Ohioans here, and a lot of them, and disproportionately people of color, by the way, are for low-level nonviolent possession of marijuana. I mean, it's tens of thousands of people that we are paying to imprison. What I would like to do is if they have been convicted for a nonviolent low-level possession, to release them from that sentence, to seal the record and give them an opportunity to participate in the industry and participate and get a share of the economic growth that it can drive for individuals and for communities. So I think what we do is we take away something that's a huge cost driver and morally just a wrong thing to do from a civil liberties perspective, and we bring those people into economic opportunity and have an opportunity for them to be positive economic contributors, and that is a great thing with a big impact for Ohio. Well, it's been introduced today. So we filed it last week, and it was introduced as HB 382. Excuse me. So that's HB 382. So now folks can check for the bill on legislature.ohio.gov. We'll be soon assigned to a committee. So if folks are interested, they can follow my page at Rep Weinstein for updates on the legislation on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Or you can certainly contact my office at rep37 at ohiohouse.gov, and we'll keep folks up to date. But what I'd say is there's a real bipartisan energy behind this, and I think we have a real opportunity to get something done. And I don't want Ohio to be left behind, to being able to be a first mover into such an exciting industry that can benefit so many people.
Representative Casey Weinstein, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jaden. Always happy to connect, sir. Appreciate you covering this issue.